Carolina Panthers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a little 1995
expansion
matchup here. They also kicked off the season in 2003, if you recall. Mark Brunell's last opening day start with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I do not recall.
They won.
Great.
It's a great win. Jags by 3.5 here, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. What are you looking for in Panthers Jaguars?
Again, similar idea. Like it's new coaching staff for Trevor Lawrence, and what they can create from him. Liam Cohen, can he produce the same magic that he did with Baker Mayfield? Does Trevor Lawrence's career get rescued? And not in terms of like being an NFL player, but in terms of being a number 1 overall pick, best quarterback since, can he actually be a high-end quarterback as opposed to just a guy that starts in the NFL for a long time? And then the other side, again, same thing, quarterback, not new regime this time, but like, can Bryce Young pick up where he left off? And again, for the 68 millionth time this offseason, Bryce Young was playing better than his stats late last year. Bryce Young was playing legitimately very, very good football. I don't have it in front of me, but if you go and look at the PFF grading from like him coming back, he grades as like a top 10 quarterback in that period of time. The stats didn't necessarily reflect it because Xavier Legette was one of his top receivers. And when Bryce Young put a bomb into his hands, he didn't come up with it. Those types of things were happening. Bryce Young was balling. If he's able to pick that up as he left off, and now you've got a question at left tackle, you've got one of your top 3 receivers in Jalen Coker gone down, your most reliable receiver you traded away in Adam Thielen. So it's not, it's not the optimal environment for him that you would have loved to have seen. They added Tetero McMillan, and that could be huge. In an ideal world, you would want him with a healthy left tackle and his reliable receiver still there. But, can he look like the player that he was when last season ended?
We touched on Ike Ekwonu's injury a little bit yesterday. He's not a great pass-protecting left tackle. He's fine. He's reasonable in the NFL, but a little bit better in the run game. That's a question mark. Josh Nijman, the expected backup there for the Panthers. If Josh Hines-Allen on that side. I know Trayvon Walker's been a bit of a punching bag for us on the show here through the years, but I could see him having a more consistent season. I don't want to say breakout season because he's had 10-plus sacks, but a more consistent season using his power and speed to power. I think we've seen elements of that where he continues to improve. So I think the pass rush for Jacksonville has a chance to have some success here. And then just that entire side of the ball. What does it look like with Travis Hunter? The Travis Hunter story, we'll touch on a little bit more of him in a minute here. The entire Travis Hunter story, it is must-see TV. It is must-watch every single week, how he's deployed, what they're doing with him. But, him and Brian Thomas Jr. as a 1-2 punch. And then Trevor Lawrence on 15 snaps just looked comfortable in Liam Cohen's offense. And it just looked slightly different where I think he was a little bit more trusting of getting to his backside reads. Does that little bit continue into the regular season here?
Yeah, the Travis Hunter thing. I mean, this is the first real look at what this is going to look like in the NFL. So far we've had snippets of preseason, and it was never really 1-to-1 because, they weren't necessarily rolling him out the way they would roll him out. Why would you when you're trying to get him to adjust to the NFL? Then you have a depth chart that lists him as a starting wide receiver and a backup corner. But a backup corner, what does that even mean? You could be the third guy. That's a starter effectively in today's NFL. So this will be the first legitimate look at what in-season, regular season, two-way football player Travis Hunter looks like at the NFL level. I think the wide receiver thing is relatively simple. Brian Thomas Jr. is your number 1 superstar. Travis Hunter is probably going to be the slot Z hybrid type of guy that is your next highest volume player in that offense, and I expect him to be very good at that. The more interesting element then is, what does the defensive version look like? How much is he going to play? How is he going to play? That's where it gets fascinating.
Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action. Other thing on that side of the ball, Liam Cohen's offense, they did a really nice job. They took a Bucs running attack that had been bad for 2 years, year and a half to 2 years, slowly made that better. As last season progressed, right? Found the right, way to use that offense, run concepts, way to play to their strengths. How quickly, if at all, can Liam Cohen get the run game going in Jacksonville? Because that's been inconsistent.
Travis Etienne breakout season? Is that what you're saying?
All of them. Tank Bigsby. I mean, it could be any of them.
Facial Tootin?
Facial Tootin, get him, in space, for some big plays. So I want to see that run game. Jags offensive line generally against what's supposed to be a revamped pass rush from the Carolina Panthers, right? Remember, they lost Derek Brown very early in the season last year, and then beyond that had very little edge rush presence. They spent their second and third round picks. Nick Scorton, Princely Uman-Mielen. Can they get any kind of pass rush in Carolina this year?
And by the way, so one element, Tampa Bay had a pretty good offensive line. This is something that I don't think gets talked about probably enough.
They did.
They had a good offensive line, which they invested in addition to being good to begin with, and it became very good. And they now have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Obviously, when Tristan Wirfs gets back healthy, he's going to be out for a while to begin the season. But theoretically, this is a very good offensive line. You can't really say the same for Jacksonville. Certainly not yet. Can Liam Cohen and his staff work wonders on the offensive line, or is that going to be something that they maybe regret not really going after this offseason? You look at some of the other moves that have been made throughout the NFL. We talked about Chicago revamping their offensive line with a new coach. Kevin O'Connell realizing that his interior was bad and going after and revamping that. Like, there are some teams, Kansas City have made, teams have focused on the offensive line, and the Jags didn't. They just kind of looked at it and went, yeah, we got the coach, we got Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas is great, let's bring in Travis Hunter, and we can make it work. What if they can't make it work, and that offensive line remains like a sort of lower third unit and actually is the reason that the whole thing doesn't work?
I always love, there's so many number one overall picks in the NFL now at quarterback. Quarterback. There's so many of them. I always love when it's a former number one versus number one. Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence.
But also, what a fascinating,
and Trayvon
those
Walker.
Two guys, right, but those two guys went number one overall. And on the one hand, you've got the guy that looks like he was designed, like the Madden creative player, right? Trevor Lawrence. This is what QB1 looks like. And on the other hand, you've got this guy that's my size who also went number one, a guy that legitimately is 5'10", 185 pounds, also went number one, in addition to the 6'6", 230-pound, cookie cutter number one overall pick.
And then the human element that they've both dealt with, right? Bryce Young being awful, getting benched, coming back, looking good. Trevor Lawrence dealing with Andrew Luck, John Elway, expectations, not living up to that. Also dealing with, the worst coach in NFL history in Urban Meyer. So.
True.
Fun.
I do. It's not, again, we made this comparison a lot. It's not quite when Aaron Donald jumped on Alex Smith's back when he came back after his leg nightmare. It's like I think everybody watching that game was like, oh. It's not quite that bad, but every time a large human gets within range of Bryce Young, you're like, Trayvon Walker, for whatever his faults are, is a very large and very strong human being. And if Trayvon Walker gets a hold of Bryce Young, I mean, he could literally, with just a jersey grip, like Hulk smash into the ground.
I think that reference is better for Matthew Stafford.
No, because Stafford,
I'm going to be worried about Stafford.
Stafford's old man back.
I'm going to be worried about Aaron Rodgers.
Stafford's
someone else, and Tua.
Right.
I'm always worried about
Tua. Yes. Stafford's old man back may well pop like a sequence of water balloons, but I still have faith in him getting up, stitching it together, like putting on a girdle and going back out there and playing again. Bryce Young, though, like if Trayvon Walker grabs hold of him and Hulk smashes him into the turf, that just feels like bad news.
All right, appreciate all the interaction in the chat. They're split on where they're going with this one. Jags by 3.5. Where are you going, Sam?
Yeah, they're not the only one.
If you want to go by 0-3, it was 24-23. The Jags won.
Well, that's all.
Mark Brunell versus Rodney Peete.
That's all I need to hear.
Before Jake Delhomme took over. You're taking the Jags.
Yes.
I'll also take the Jags by 3.5. I don't love it, but Harry's taking the Panthers. We got Harry's on an island.
Yeah. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
And the all-knowing algorithm is convinced you'll also like these videos, and who are we to argue?